2. So for the first one, we did Fed Up, the movie, which I was very critical about. This time, I'm hoping to lighten up a little bit. There are two that I want you to check out that I think you'll really enjoy. Try to keep this podcast a little shorter, too. I don't have any clips for them because I don't want to spoil anything, and one of them is kind of, it just tells a story, so I don't really have an opinion about that too much, although we could get into it. And the other one is more, not really a story, but kind of, I think, more has to do with kind of technology and things of that nature. So we'll get into them. In case you just want to go check them out and don't want to hear any commentary about it, I think they're both on Netflix. I could be wrong. I know one of them is on YouTube. Actually, they might even both be on YouTube. But again, Netflix, I think they're both on Netflix, so just leave it at that. The first one is called Tyke The Elephant, Outlaw. It is really it's a gem. It's a rare movie that you find these days. I guess from my perspective, I feel like a lot of movies these days, they're kind of just, they're going for the cheap stuff. They're going for the gasps and the action and some kind of basic plot. I mean, they're not really going for extraordinary. I mean, when you think of really great movies, I think today, like, where's the Forrest Gump of 2019? Where's where are movies like The Matrix that are just completely groundbreaking and amazing in every respect? I mean, I feel like you just don't see that. I feel like a lot of originality is dying in Hollywood, and that's why I think you're seeing a lot of reboots, a lot of remakes. We're on the 200th Terminator, which, I like Terminator, that's cool, but there's a lot less originality, I feel, in that industry. And so, I reference a movie like Forrest Gump where it really brings you on this wild roller coaster of feelings. And, I guess the best way to describe it is Derek Trucks, who's an amazing slide guitar player, said once that he doesn't want to go to a guitar show because the guy is good. He wants to go to a guitar show, or he wants to go see a guitar player that moves him, that makes him feel like it moves his soul, something of that nature. And I feel that way. Like, some movies will do that too. I mean, these epic movies like Scarface and like I said, Forrest Gump and other movies those just epic, award-winning, incredible, critically acclaimed, whatever you want to call them. They're movies that stand out, that are just amazing. They take you on this huge journey, make you feel all these different emotions, and that's what it's all about. And I think this is one of those movies, Tyke the Outlaw Elephant. I'm not going to even give you the story. I want you to be totally surprised. But it tells this great story about, you have an elephant who lived a very tormented life. You have a trainer who had a deep passion for working with animals, and in fact, I think had a very unique outlook on how he should be training animals. He definitely had a different approach to training than other trainers, as you see in the document. He was much more caring and compassionate in what he was doing. And of course, then just the villainous, evil corporation who, I mean, I wouldn't even say profit-seeking was their motivation, but just sheer negligence. Just the sheer negligence of that they knew something was wrong, and they had clear evidence, and they had a lot of information that said, hey, we shouldn't be doing this kind of stuff. And they did it anyway because they were just terrible human beings. And just so you have this really, it's a tragic story, but I mean, it's very well told, where you have these three different dynamics all playing with each other at the same time. And I mean, every time I've seen it, probably now 3 or 4 times, it's strange. I remember seeing this way back, I want to say it was like 2015, I think I saw it. I feel like the name is constantly changing. I remember it being called something else, and then I watch it, and then I think it's been changed a couple times. But regardless, it's on there right now as Tyke the Outlaw Elephant. The story about basically this elephant and all these things coming together, and how, I guess for me, the upsetting thing about it is like it didn't have to be this way. There were so many other options, so many other things that could have happened. It didn't have to happen which is what I'm not going to tell you about because you got to watch the movie. But it makes you think about stuff, and I don't know why. I mean, obviously I'm definitely an animal lover. I love people too, obviously more than animals, and that's one of the the big things is one of the great questions I think is, well, how do I word this? Is it okay to have some of these animals kind of at our will, in the sense where they can perform for us or be in like a preserve or something? Because it's interesting. It's like we like and enjoy seeing them, but at the same time, would or would it not be better for them to be out in the wild? Assuming that all the animals in question are capable of being in the wild. I mean, some of them are in those preserves because they're permanently disabled, or they couldn't survive in the wild for whatever reason. So it brings up some interesting questions. But either way, I think the movie moved me. I think it'll move you. So I think it's worth watching. Changing gears a little bit, there's a movie. It's a PBS documentary. I guess it might be a part of the Nova series. I'm not sure. But it's called The Nuclear Option. It came out in 2017, I believe. You can find it on YouTube, but you can also check it out on Netflix. And the documentary is basically about... it kind of starts off talking about the history of the Fukushima nuclear reaction. It's all about nuclear energy and kind of the ins and outs and the basics of it. And what they go through is they kind of talk about brief history of nuclear technology and how it was back in the day, and then it goes over the explosion at Fukushima, which I was mixing up with the Chernobyl one when we were talking about it last time with some friends, and I had to think, oh man, wait, why am I so crazy? Everything I was saying was wrong. Like no, it wasn't built there. I was getting everything wrong, and I thought, God, I feel like I sound like such an idiot. But in any case. So then they go over some of the newer technology, which is interesting. So basically you have these old reactors and these old kind of ways they were designing them and how they would cool them and everything. And then, most of the early ones were water cooled. Then you had some liquid metal cooled ones. And nowadays you have these incredible sodium liquid ones, which are just, the technology is amazing, as you can imagine. But what's interesting about this documentary is that you listen to all these scientists and everything, and the motivation behind them is, these are all people who believe in the global warming. Now, obviously, we've discussed this on the podcast, where I am not really convinced of the science. I think that a lot of the science is political, and the politics of everything has really corrupted the science. So I think the whole thing is not really exactly true, for lack of a better word. But at the same time, what's interesting about it is that the people who are getting involved in this movement, I guess if you want to call it that, are people who are looking for solutions for global warming. And it's interesting because you look back, they go over this history about how, nuclear was coming back, I guess it was in the 80s, 90s, and nuclear was kind of like a new field, this growing field for energy. And it was completely shut down with what was going on in Chernobyl and probably Fukushima. And what's interesting about it is this was the environmentalist left that was doing this. They were obviously protesting and doing what they do, and they basically put the pressure on politicians, and they shut down the nuclear industry. So as a result of that, as a result of environmentalism, they shut down nuclear energy. And so we've just continued with fossil fuels since then. And now that global warming has become, I guess, more of an issue for this younger generation growing up talking about it, they're just now really returning and considering nuclear energy as the viable alternative to producing energy in a world where we don't want carbon emissions. And the technology is just incredible. These guys looking into it. And I just remember thinking to myself, wow. So the old environmental left they got in their own way, essentially. I just found it very ironic, where I think that if you just let markets work, things are going to come. Things are just going to happen. And nuclear, who knows? If we didn't have nuclear energy blocked, we might have some of these kind of sodium reactors running today. We probably wouldn't need any coal. Not any, but... we would probably be in a transitioning phase where we're shutting down coal-producing electrical plants and in favor of these nuclear plants. All the while using even nuclear waste. I mean, in one of the documentaries, the most shocking thing to me, I think it's TerraPower, which is a corporation by Bill Gates, which is looking into this. Basically, they're looking into using nuclear waste to further power and produce nuclear energy. And I guess there's this field somewhere in the Midwest that has all this nuclear waste. And they're saying that if their technology pans out, they will have enough energy to run the entire country for 750 years just off of the nuclear waste by itself, which I think is incredible. And it's just, and kind of going back to what I was saying, it's to me, it seemed very ironic that you had a kind of leftist environmentalist movement to get rid of the advancements and transition into nuclear energy, but then that got in the way of their other cause, getting rid of global warming and emissions, carbon emissions. And so it's like, what do? You can't, and I think it kind of exposed a fallacy in a couple ways about the environmentalist left. One, I mean, it's clearly this is documented in a couple of different Mark Levin books where he goes over some of these, I don't want to say radical, because I think it's actually not that radical anymore, these environmental groups that are very open about the idea where, listen, it needs to be planet first, a planet above human, meaning that, listen, like, hey, if people die because of a virus or because of a lack of energy, then whatever. I mean, the planet is what matters, not us. The whole idea that the human is a virus to the planet, that kind of thinking. So I think it exposes that. I mean, that it's not about people. It's about really the destruction of people, which is a view I don't particularly agree with. But the second thing is, I mean, just for all the knocking of capitalism and profits and evil corporations and privatization, either way, it's gonna work. When people demand something one way or the other, they're gonna get it. They're just gonna get it, and there's nothing you can do to stop it. You can delay it. It might, in this case, we had 30 extra years of carbon emissions that we may not have really had to deal with. If we had just let markets work. That's an interesting thing about the issue of global warming, is that we may not agree on the science of things, but as far as alternative energies, I think that's, not only is that the solution to the discussion, but I think it's something we all agree on, really. I mean, if you're like these nuclear physicists who, I'm going to assume they're on the left. I mean, they're like, we believe in global warming, and that's probably why they're in this field, which, by the way, if there are any, all these radical leftists out there who are protesting and doing this Antifa, and they're worried about, these radical environmentalists worried about all this crap, take the black mask off your face and get the engineering degree. Go learn about nuclear physics, nuclear science, nuclear engineering. Go be a part of the solution, not the problem. Do what these people did in this documentary. These people, assuming that they're on the left, they applied themselves. They dedicated themselves to a cause, and now they're going to do a lot of good because of it. If we can get off of coal and onto nuclear energy, not only can we provide clean energy, which is what they want, we could probably meet and maybe even exceed our energy demand, which is good for people, which is good for us, which is, has economic consequences that I think are beneficial. So yeah, I mean, while we may not believe in global warming one way or the other, we can definitely get on board with the solution where the people on the left will enjoy the carbon-free living and may not have as much guilt about using energy, and us on the right, capitalists, whatever you want to call us, let markets work. Let the best technology beat out the old technology. Let's make things more efficient. Let's free up some money and people's labor and time and resources and put it to the best use. I mean, absolutely, of course I'm on board for this. Just because oil is, the best and cheapest resource that we have now doesn't mean it's going to be like that forever. I'm not, and I feel like most people on the right would say this, is that, we're not advocates for big oil per se. We're just, they happen to be what they are, which is the best kind of energy that we have at the moment for the best price. Excuse me. But if if at any point, if something else comes out there that's better, then yeah, we'll jump on board with that, and that's totally fine. So I just thought it was a really unique perspective. Excuse me. To see how that argument, how the global warming argument can change into something a lot more positive than what it's been. Instead of being, instead of looking at it as like a global warmist or a global warming denier, we can actually skip the argument and go right to the solution and say, listen, you want nuclear energy, I want nuclear energy. Let's see if we can make this work. And I think that's a good way, a good segue to take the conversation to a better place. And, in the future, if I do have discussions with people about global warming, I'm going to ask them about that and see what they think. Because I think that's a way, that is a bridge that you can use to gap the conversation if you find yourself in that kind of conversation. With whether you're on the left and you're talking to someone on the right or vice versa, it doesn't matter. I think it's just a good way to kind of bring people together, which is obviously something we always want to do. But we always want to do it with truth and reality being at the forefront of things. We don't want anything built that's fake or useless or ridiculous. We want everything to be genuine and real. And at the end of the day, we're all people. We all want to, at least I think anyway, we all want to kind of, to some degree, get together, enjoy life, and reduce suffering and all that stuff. But that's a bit heavy for a film review, so I'm going to end it there. Check them out. Tyke The Elephant, The Nuclear Option, both on Netflix. And we'll see you next time. Thank you.